Everyone, we've got an exciting interview. We're going to be talking to Payton from Numinus today. Anyway, Payton, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Looks like you've got some nice weather outside in your background, which is great to see.
Yeah,
Well, cool. I mean, let's hop things in. First, I kind of want to start, a little bit about you, your background, how you got involved in the space. You want to kind of walk people through, your journey. Number one, what you were doing before, kind of the crazy psychedelic space, but also what made you interested in psychedelics and really want to look at them in more detail.
sure. Yeah. I have a background in capital markets. I started my career at Canaccord, was at Canaccord for 5 or 6 years, then left Canaccord and was part of a group that bought a control position of a smaller independent brokerage firm called Jordan Capital. Was with Jordan for a couple of years, and then we sold Jordan to a larger independent brokerage firm called Mackey Research. And I ran Mackey's Vancouver office, and I was the director of the across Canada firm as well. And how I got involved with psychedelics, actually, I grew up in a family that had really struggled with addiction, and so I was never I always shied away from drugs, and I'd never taken a psychedelic in my life, but I'd been a long time mental health advocate going back to my late teens. I'd always, throughout my whole life, I'd struggled with some severe chronic health issues, as well as mental health issues, and was always really not only dedicated personally, but also quite outspoken just about mental health and the importance of taking care of your mental health. But a couple of years ago, as much as I was trying to do a lot of work to rectify the issues that I was having, got myself to a point where I had tried everything to rectify my chronic health issues, and ended up turning to psychedelic therapy as really a last ditch effort to try and save my own life. As I said, I'd never done a psychedelic before. I'd researched psychedelics for like a year and a half. I'm sort of a down the rabbit hole kind of guy. And I was in the hospital at Lionsgate Hospital in Vancouver, and was laying in the trauma ward there, and leaned over to my now wife, and I said, "You got to trust me, but I got to do something a little different," and ended up turning to psychedelic therapy, and saved my life, really. You hear a lot of people talk about a psychedelic therapy can be 10 years of therapy in one treatment. And as someone who's done over 10 years worth of therapy, I can attest that was definitely the experience that I had. So, came out of that, and really in the beginning, was just trying to figure out a way that I could give back to something that saved my life. I never intended on quitting my job and starting a business and doing this full time. But the more I was looking at the space, and the more I was speaking with a lot of the leading research institutions, recognized that there was just more that I could do. There was more that I would sort of be of service to the space than just simple philanthropy. And that's really where Numinus got birthed out of, was trying to provide a platform, not only to support research, but also try and help to bridge that gap between research and practice, just seeing how much interest is coming to the space, and how close we could potentially be to be providing this for people in a regulated way.
Amazing. So really, obviously dealing with your own personal issues and kind of, learning that psychedelics can help you, and wanting to help other people that had similar issues as you. I think it's amazing. You look extremely young for having an incredible experience, both like that and also in capital markets. So, awesome. You don't have to say your age if you don't want to, but
No, yeah, the ripe old age of I'm almost 34. But so there's days where I feel like I'm 100, but I started in capital markets business when I was 18, and so lots of experience, even though young in age. So
yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. And so you get into psychedelics, and where we see a lot of other companies, a lot of people talking, oh, it's just, some people will say, oh, the people that were doing cannabis in earlier, kind of 2012 to 2015 just hopped into, the next trend, which was psychedelics. You actually had a real experience. You clearly can see a real use case, which is fantastic. And like you said, that kind of birthed this new startup that you have. So walk us through, kind of, tell people, what is Numinus? What are you guys focusing on? For people that don't really understand psychedelics and just think of magic mushrooms, maybe try and dumb it down for everybody.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting just going back to just quickly talking about the space. I mean, we founded Numinus 2 years ago now, which, 2 years is not a long period of time. In the psychedelic space, it's quite a long time, just how many new faces are in the space. When we set out to found Numinus, we never had the intention of actually taking it public. The plan was always just to create a private company that operated well. And then, as more interest came to the space, there was the possibility of us taking it public and being able to use the capital markets just to, not for startup capital, but to actually grow the business. We'd already built quite a strong infrastructure and a platform to build off of. And so going to that platform, as I mentioned, when I came out of that experience that I had, and multiple experiences really, the model that we created was through working with, at the time, there was really the only sort of, call it, for-profit group in the space was Compass Pathways. The rest of it was all just research groups. So through a lot of conversation with a lot of those groups that were leading research, we started asking just what are the pieces that you guys need? What can we go out and do? What can we go out and build to really try and help move research along? And the same thing we kept hearing was infrastructure. So clinical space, trained people, a platform to be able to provide this, and a platform to be able to house research as well. And then, the other big thing that we recognized pretty quickly was, actually sourcing the material in a regulated way was going to be a big hurdle for us to be able to try and hop over, to be able to actually provide research, provide the material for research, and then obviously when research converts into practice. So that's really why we ended up doing the merger with Salvation Botanicals, who had the narcotics dealer's license. Was that gave us the ability to not only secure a license to be able to supply for our own research that we wanted to do, but also be a supplier for other groups who are looking to do research in the space as well.
Amazing. Oh, it's cool. I mean, the space has obviously changed a lot, even in 6 months, let alone 2 years. And it's nice that you were here for a much longer term. But I guess kind of walk people through, if you have to give the 2 sentences what Numinus does. So what would be your response?
Yeah, I think, for us, really what Numinus does is we feel that we've brought in as many pieces of the puzzle to really, really support psychedelics in a really robust way. And again, going back to, just the space in general is this is about mental health. It's about healthcare. It's not, we're not talking about a recreational play here, or anything like that, which was really the focus around cannabis. So, what we're really, really focusing on is providing the infrastructure platform to be able to support psychedelic therapy and the integrative practices that need to wrap around psychedelic therapy in order for it to really be effective for people.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of wanted to hop into, I guess, the addiction relief side of things. If you just, a quick Google search, you come up with, addiction relief. You have alcoholism, you have opioids, which is an interesting one. And then you have PTSD, depression, and other things like that, mental health related issues. To give people insight, again, quick Google search, you've got drug like rehab is valued at a $35 billion industry just in North America alone, with almost 10% of Americans suffering from pretty serious depression. Walk me through kind of, that market and how you guys are trying to address it. You said, obviously, you're looking at making sure the clinics are in place and you're trying to be full medical, but maybe, touch on some of the addiction side of things and what your guys' focus is. Go from
Yeah, I think you look at whether it's addiction, suicide, depression, these are all rates that are going up. We're not doing a good job of addressing these issues. And it's not from a lack of effort. It's just we need better tools. We need better ways of looking at these things. So, just talking about addiction, what we really look at, especially with psychedelics, is how do you treat the underlying cause of the addiction in the first place? How do you, whether it's trauma, PTSD, depression, those underlying causes that create the addiction in the first place, that's where we have been focusing a lot of energy and effort on, and working in conjunction. We have partnership with a group called Together We Can, who Together We Can is the largest inpatient addiction treatment organization in Canada. And it was actually through them actually reaching out to us, just saying, look, like we're excited about what you guys are doing, and we need some more tools. We need help. And so there's an ability to, I think, really make a big impact for people around addiction in particular, but also, as you mentioned, just depression, PTSD, the broader buckets of mental health as well.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, call this a reach, but talking about COVID a little bit here, just to stay in the now. You've got unemployment at all-time highs, right? You've got people that are really getting kind of fed up with being at home. Walk me through what you think is going to be the, I guess, aftermath of lockdown and aftermath of COVID, and do you think that you guys are going to fit directly into helping some of the people that have been struggling during the lockdown?
Yeah, you never want to play opportunist of a very unfortunate and difficult situation, but I think absolutely, I think mental health, I think, has never, not that we needed a spotlight in terms of the issues around mental health, but it's never been more at the forefront of people's minds. And I think there's now a real recognition that there's some help that's really, really needed there. And that's definitely something that we're looking at, is how we can best support people coming out of COVID and coming out of lockdown as well. So it's definitely something that we're looking at. And I think, you've seen Health Canada come out and say that they're bringing in a lot of funding to look at, COVID, after COVID measures and stuff like that as well. So I think you're seeing a lot of support from both the public and private sector to try and really address, what will come out of this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. And yeah, not to sound opportunistic, but simply making the link that obviously you're going to see people struggling a little bit more after this, unfortunately. I guess linking this, to something, it's a longer question. How does Numinus find a customer? But the other side of it, if someone watching this or someone's just interested in kind of the process, how do you take someone with an addiction through your clinic, and then obviously now they're cured, let's call it, or whatever you want to say? So how do you, number one, find these people? I know you have a partnership with that group you just mentioned, but also talk us through the process and really what's the clinic side of it look like for someone who just wants a little peek behind the curtain. How does the process work?
Yeah, so it's early right now to definitely dig into that too much. As I mentioned, right now, everything is within a research context, and one of the big things we've been waiting for, or not even waiting for, but helping to try and solve or come up with is what is regulation going to look like with psychedelics? What kind of practitioners, what kind of intake, what are all of those pieces sort of on the ground? And that's really, for us to be able to work in collaboration with research groups, that continues to inform our clinic model, so that we can be developing both in parallel with one another. So right now, the space that we have doesn't do any psychedelic treatment for people, but there's intake, there's supportive practices, we have a integrative team of doctors, therapists, psychotherapists who are all working there to continue to provide just services for people outside of psychedelic therapy, but also with the caveat in mind that is something that we're continuing to work towards. So it's still in development, and again, it will inform the model very much, just what regulation ends up actually looking like.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I guess going into more the visionary questions, obviously, being in the space for a significantly longer time than some others, and even, kind of being, I guess, an adversary of it yourself. Talk to me through, what needs to happen in the space for it to move to the next step. Give me the what you would like to see happen in the next year or two that can really move the psychedelic space to the next level. You talked a bunch about regulations. Maybe if you want to touch on that again or mention anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you've got MDMA in phase 3 clinical trials for post-traumatic stress disorder. You've got psilocybin in phase 2 clinical trials right now for mood disorder. There's so many things that are, really, really on the cusp. What I would love to see again is just continuing to really, really support that research, continue to really, even just education for the public, I think is really important. There's a lot more education that's out there. People are starting to get very informed in terms of just what psychedelic therapy actually is. There's still a bit of stigma out there, obviously, just in terms of psychedelics and what that means. So I think the big things are continuing to support the research, continuing to get those research numbers published, and then and that will continue to help inform the educational piece as well. But I think just continuing awareness around that and continued advocacy around, there's not a person on earth that mental health doesn't at least have one degree of separation from. So I think continuing to inform people of what could potentially be possible with psychedelic therapy is really important.
Yeah, the education atmosphere, you're definitely bang on there. When a lot of people think of psychedelics, they think of doing magic mushrooms in your backyard, or something like that, right? So I think, like you said, educating people that, hey, like there's a real use case here, right? And really taking it to the next level, it would be fantastic for the space, which is great. Is there anything you want to comment more on kind of the educational side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big one. I think even from just talking about investors in capital markets and stuff like that too, that you're seeing such a huge interest in terms of investing in the space as well. And a lot of the people that we've seen who are interested in investing in the space, they understand, oh, this is about mental health. This is about healthcare treatment. And that's what they get excited about, but they don't maybe necessarily know exactly, what that looks like, in terms of really supporting the psychedelic space. So I think investors as well, more education the investors can have around what this space represents, what psychedelic therapy potentially represents for people, I think is going to be really important. And, this is something that, people say, oh, they're just chasing something that's exciting or whatever. I think this space represents a lot more than that. And I think there's a big opportunity there? Absolutely. But I think the opportunity should be driven by results from making a big difference in how we treat mental health.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's always been a sector that a lot of people would consider kind of, dinosaur age, where you go into a clinic, you go through this. Really, it's they just don't give you, for example, alcohol. They just don't give you any alcohol for a month, and then cool, you're on your way. But it doesn't really solve much. It's not a clear path forward, and I think you guys really touched on that. It makes a lot of sense that this industry is ready for kind of disruption, and hey, if it's psychedelics, then awesome. I guess a lot of what you said kind of ties into another question of mine, which is, obviously, congratulations, you guys successfully went public, about a week ago, which is great. Walk me through kind of what your envisions for the company is like over the next 5 years, and they don't need to be projections, but just, hey, if we were here in 5 years, this would be amazing.
Yeah. For us, really, the big growth going forward is continuing to expand that clinic footprint, and continuing, that's really what we see as the best way that we can provide access for people is continuing to broaden out the clinic footprint, the how we can offer to people. The great thing about this space is we're not beholden to just Canada. We can expand into the US and farther than that, which is for us very exciting. So we are looking at opportunities in the US as well, and continuing to broaden out that scope. And obviously at the same time, again, going back to that research piece, continuing to support that research, continuing to be a group that's, the research that's going on right now, PTSD is just one indication. There's multiple indications that psychedelics could potentially make a huge impact for. So, there's lots of work to be done, but as we can continue to broaden those indications and continue to provide access for people in a scalable way that is also affordable for people as well, that's really, really, for us, the vision and the mission going forward is affordable and accessible treatment for everybody.
Yeah, no, awesome. I think that's a very good visionary kind of answer. Really just to give people a taste. Give me how many clinics you'd love to have in 5 years, or give me something like that, which is, hey, this is my internal goal. Will it happen? Who knows? You gotta stay strapped in, but this is what I would hope in 5 years from now.
Yeah, we've sort of said this from the beginning, but we've always said if we can make one work, we can make 100 work. And the plan is to be able to provide a lot of locations for people. Psychedelic therapy is something that we believe needs to be done in person. It's important that there's physical sites where people can go to be able to do this work. Just talking about mental health, there's lots of gyms out there. We all work on our physical health. There's yoga and all those types of things. And, mental health and just mental wellness or even mental performance is something that we think, you shouldn't have to just treat somebody when they're at their end. You should, there should be spaces where you can, almost like preventative mental health, where you're going in and being able to do work on your mental health as an ongoing process. So for us, we'd love to be in multiple locations as spaces where, if you're looking to work on your mental health or your mental well-being, Numinus is there, and you can go to Numinus to do that, whether it's through psychedelic treatment or not. Maybe it's just the other services that we plan on providing. It doesn't have to just be psychedelic work.
Wow. That's something I think a lot of people don't really think about is, how do you prevent this in the beginning? A lot of people just look at the end goal, like you said, of, oh, I have depression, how can I help it? Where obviously you've got studies that come out, hey, if you eat healthier, obviously less people will suffer from depression, and et cetera. So really, I guess it's more, how do you stop it before it starts? And I think you're onto something there. You touched on yoga and a lot of other things people do to kind of reset and soothe their mental. And I think it makes a lot of sense that you guys would be looking at a ton of those different areas. So amazing visionary response. I guess I'll leave it off with, is there anything you want to say about Numinus that we didn't cover, or even about your background that we didn't cover before we end?
No, I think, for us, it's extremely exciting to see this category continue to get built. It was 2 years ago. It was an interesting time for sure. We were very confident and quite sure just about where the space was headed, but there were not a lot of other people in the space, and so to see just how quickly this category's grown, how big it's already gotten is exciting for us, because it just continues to move towards broader access for people, which is awesome. So just more than anything, super grateful and excited about what looks like is coming ahead. So that's really it.
Yeah, it reminds me of crypto to a degree. More awareness comes with obviously more people in the space, and that's exactly how you're looking at it, which I think is amazing. But hey, I think this was a fantastic interview. Thanks for hopping on. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. We'll make sure that we try and get some answers for everybody. But anyway, Payton, thanks for hopping on. That was great.